Have you ever wondered, should I grow dahlias on my cut flower farm? Are they really profitable? Do I need to grow thousands of them? Can I sell the tubers and make so much money? Or what's the point of them? Are they actually profitable? If you've ever wondered any of those things, stick around for this video because this is not your typical grow all of the dahlias video. Okay, so let's just start kind of with a little bit of background. I'm going into my 7th year of flower farming, and I totally saw it all. Florists, gorgeous dahlias and all the things. There's a lady 3 miles from me, grows gorgeous dahlias, gorgeous. And I thought, wow, you got to have them on your cut flower farm. And so I started growing them, and I started really small on my farm. So I didn't start by growing tons and tons of them. I really thought oh, actually, these are really a lot of work. They cost a lot of money to grow, and I wonder if these are really worth it. One of the things that was really difficult for me in the early years was storing them. I, grew some and thought, okay, right, like they're going to multiply the tubers and I can divide them and I'll get more and more of them. Well, that didn't really work very well for me at the beginning because I didn't store them right. I lost like 80% of them. And so that was really discouraging. So then I was buying more and then still had trouble storing them, which is kind of why I fizzled out of growing them altogether. And I just didn't feel like they were very profitable because they took so many inputs. And then I had a couple of babies. So I had one baby, and then, I just didn't have time to fuss with this super high maintenance crop. And then in the summer of 2023, I was pregnant with my 5th baby, and I just cut things out of my farm. That was the year I just completely only sold to florists. I said, I'm not doing one single thing. I'm not going to one pop-up market. I'm not going to try any of these things. I'm only going to sell to florists, which, by the way, if you want my free tips for selling flowers to florists, I have a free download about tips for selling flowers to florists. And to this day, that's how I sell my flowers, what is only to florists, basically. And then that was also the summer of 2023 that I was like, no dahlias. None. I'm not going to deal with this crap at all. I'm pregnant and I don't feel very great when I'm pregnant. And I was incredibly exhausted. I've never been so tired in my entire life as being pregnant and flower farming, being pregnant with my 5th child and flower farming, and having a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 month old and all the rest of my kids. So I just totally cut dahlias. And that was a great decision. Just kind of cut out this stressor of a flower. Well, then the next summer, I had a flower farming friend that gave me some of her extra tubers. So, I was like, okay, I guess I'll plant these. Like, she gave them to me, and they were like Ivanetti and Cornell bronze and a couple of really good cut flower tubers. And she's a flower farmer. So I planted them. I maybe like 30 or 40 of them. Very, very, very few, right? So, and they came up and they were nice and I sold them. And every single one of my florists asks for dahlias. Like, they really do. People ask me for them all the time. Even though there are 2 or 3 large local flower farms that are selling high volumes of amazing dahlias to florists. Like, shout out to these other flower farmers. The one flower farmer north of me, she has like 8,000 of them. Another flower farmer in Muskegon area, she grows them in a heated greenhouse. So she has dahlias in June. Nobody has dahlias in June in Michigan. She's amazing. She's incredible. Amazing quality, amazing grower, right? Like, there's other growers doing great, great things around me in big volumes. So here I am with my like 40 dahlias, right? But despite that, florists still continue to ask me for dahlias. The question is, do I want to grow dahlias? A lot of these farms, not all of them, but most of them sell the tubers. Like, I know Lori from 3 Acre Farm. She lives like 3 miles from me. She grows and sells the tubers. And I know that the tuber selling is a huge portion of her revenue from her flower farm is selling the tubers. And that's great. That's great for her. She also does a really great job with selling the tubers. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. I don't want to divide and sell tubers in the winter. I want to homeschool my kids and grow this high tunnel and make YouTube videos, I guess. I don't want to be marketing and selling tubers. It's just not my thing. And storing them, remember? That old storage problem that I have. So the question remains, without selling tubers, are dahlias actually profitable? They're this high maintenance friend of ours that sucks all this, energy and time and money out of you. And then they show up and they're gorgeous and beautiful for a really short period of time. Are they worth it? Well, I don't know. Let's keep going here. Why are they such divas? Well, they take up a lot of space here in Michigan. They take real estate on the farm the entire growing season. You plant them in May And, they're there in the exact same spot through the entire season. And for us in Michigan, they don't bloom until August or September. And then we have our first frost in the middle of October. So we don't have a long season with them. In Michigan, you have to dig and divide them, or you have to dig them. You can't leave them in the ground. We'll get into that a little bit, but you can't just leave them in bare soil. They will all rot and die because they will freeze because it's cold here. So they take a lot of manpower to dig and divide and plant. And then they take a lot of fertilization and weeding during the season and staking or supporting. They're expensive if you don't have your own tuber stock and you're buying tubers. That's expensive. If you're like me and had a really difficult time storing them and they were all rotting and you had to replace your stock, like that's hard. They have to be harvested at a pretty specific stage. They don't have a long vase life. I mean, there's lots of reasons why dahlias are divas and are very high maintenance. And then there's the tuber business reality. Like if you actually want to get into selling tubers, that is a really, really specific niche, like very specific things about it. I'm not in that environment, but I have a good friend, Missy from Missy's Dahlias. She lives like literally a mile from me. That's all she does is grow dahlias. She grows 1,000 dahlias and sells the tubers for like $20 a piece to home gardeners. And that's how she makes her livelihood. But most of that is made on the tubers. And for her, the flower, which she does sell to florists, is a byproduct. Like it's not really the main product. And she is amazing at selling her tubers, and she meticulously cares for them and prevents disease and does all this sanitation and does all these things that she's explained to me that I don't know very much about, and she's amazing at them. However, not everyone is like that. They're not doing it correctly. I know that from other flower farmers who have gotten tubers from other farms that have been bad, that have come to them rotten, that have had crown gall on them and other diseases that dahlias are really prone to diseases. So you have to actually really know what you're doing if to sell tubers, or you're going to do a bad job of it. And there are a lot, it's like all the big bubble now. Every flower farmer is selling tubers. I can tell you, I can attest to this. I'm part of a flower farming Facebook group in West Michigan. And like, I can't even tell you how many people have posted, like, they have dahlia tubers for sale, dahlia tubers for sale, dahlia tubers for sale. Like, everybody's trying to sell them. And I think it's this big bubble and it's going to burst. Like, there is not room for all of these tiny small farms selling dahlia tubers. Like, you might sell a few, but I just don't think that it's going to go well for everyone. Like, if you think you're going to get into flower farming and make all your bucks selling dahlia tubers, you're going to have to work really, really, really hard at your marketing to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible. And there are people doing it really well. Like some of the people that I mentioned that I personally know, it's definitely not for me. And it's really difficult to vet the quality of a dahlia tuber before you buy it, that you're buying from some small farm, right? Like, how do you know how they handle it and what it looks like and different things, right? So it's a challenge. It has a lot of challenges. And then there's the whole dahlia breeding, like dahlia unicorn chasing. I am just not into that. If that's your thing, like, that's fine. That's just not my thing at all. That's not fun to me. That's just not my thing. What is my plan? This year, I saved my dahlia tubers successfully from my friend because I have other friends that I leaned on heavily for advice about how to store these tubers. And I did it like they said, and it worked. It worked out. And I didn't lose 80% of them. But it took a lot of trial and error and a lot of learning. And a lot of it is just like, what is your space like? What is your environment? What's your heat? What's this and that? It's not just like, do them this way. Boom, it works. Like, it's not quite that easy. So I finally was able to store them. So I saved and divided the stock from my 40 dahlia tubers, and I had a whole bunch of them. I had another flower farmer give me a couple other dahlia tubers. So this spring, I had the Ivanetti and the Cornell Bronze, and I wanted to have about 100 of each. And then I ordered Rycraft Jan as a white dahlia. I didn't get that because it got subbed. So I ended up getting 75 Bomb White, which was a little bit disappointing to me because I really wanted this other variety because that's what a dahlia expert friend of mine told me was the best white. I don't think Bomb White was bad by any means, but I would be super curious about the other one. Anyway, right. So it didn't go perfectly either. And so I had about 300 dahlias, basically 3 colors: the Bomb White, the Ivanetti, and the Cornell Bronze, which some of them weren't all Cornell Bronze, but basically like, that orange kind of color. That was my plan. It went well. And then here's my future plan. So I did not dig my dahlias this fall because I actually don't think that putting all that manpower into them makes your dahlias profitable. So I am overwintering my dahlias. There's about 2 feet of leaves on top of them. And then I should have put a tarp on them, but I never got that far before we got a foot of snow after Thanksgiving. That's the way they are. I have a good flower farming friend of mine here in West Michigan that successfully overwintered their dahlia tubers in the ground last year, and there's lots of benefits for them. So if I'm successful at doing that, I'll come back and give you an update, but I'm not going to talk about what that is because I haven't done it successfully yet. So, but that's my plan. And then I feel like I am missing a color. I really need a pink dahlia. And so I was growing these colors very specifically for my customer base, for my florists, and for what florists want. So I'm going to be adding some kind of a pink, probably peaches and cream, and getting about 100 of those and have like 400 dahlias that if I can perennialize, I think I will keep growing them because I think they will be profitable. But, I'm always up for reevaluating and figuring things out. Okay, but let's get into the profitability truth. That's like all the, things leading up to this. But how are these really profitable? Do you want to know real numbers? Real numbers? Because I like knowing real numbers because that helps you make a real decision. So here are my real numbers, okay? Also, if dahlias are your thing and you love it and you've perfected them and you're the one growing 8,000 dahlias and smashing it out of the park, keep going. We need people like you. We need farmers like that. I'm just not that farmer. Okay, so are they profitable? I prefer low fuss, high return crops. So yes, I sell my dahlias for about $2.50 wholesale to florists. So that's not cheap per stem, but it's also not, crazy. So let's compare dahlias to cosmos and then marigolds. These are my real numbers from my farm from 2025 numbers. So I sold a total of $2,738 worth of dahlias. So that's 3 25-foot rows. So that gives me $912 per row of like actual sales. Did I have some loss? Yes. Again, like I'm not a dahlia expert, so I was kind of trying to figure out some storage stuff and some harvest window stuff. And I really only sell things on Monday and Tuesday. So I don't really have an end of the week sales outlet. So I had to compost some of the dahlias like toward the end of the week because I didn't feel like I could save them to sell them. So could I be better? Yes. Did I have crop that was harvestable that was a loss? Yes. But I sold a decent amount. So there's that. I also bought 75 Bomb white tubers from Ball Seed for $175. Again, that wasn't my first choice. It got subbed out. I bought an auger in order to actually plant these dahlias. Oh my goodness, they're such a pain in the neck. And they just take a lot of manpower, right? Lots of weeding, lots of fertilizing. I weeded them a ton, trellising, staking, supporting, different things, right? Like they're hard. They have a lot of risk. But I was able to successfully store the tubers. So that was helpful, which most of them were given to me, which was also helpful. Okay, so now compare that to Cosmos, right? So Cosmos, a packet of Cosmos seeds is very cheap. I didn't actually look up what I paid for them, but just look on Johnny's. But they're not an expensive crop. I planted them with my paper pot transplanter, which takes me about 2 minutes to plant. If you want to know what a paper pot transplanter is and how I do that, I have a video all about paper pot transplanting. But if you want a time saving, back saving, money saving, help for your farm and you're growing a lot of flowers, I would highly recommend you look into a paper pot transplanter. Those paper pot chains cost about $5 per chain. So I spent $5 on a chain like per row. My Cosmos total was 2,907. Now I had 4 25-foot rows of Cosmos as opposed to the dahlias. I have 3. So per row, there's $727 per Cosmos. Okay, but that's not the end of the story because I can get 2 crops in the beds where I have Cosmos. You can essentially double that. So actually it's like 1,400 more than that, like close to 1,500 in sales from one row of Cosmos. So think like Nigella and then Cosmos, or Cosmos and then Saponaria, or Cosmos and then Cosmos, or Cosmos and then Marigolds, right? Like you can grow 2 annual crops per bed in a row. At least I can in Michigan. Like I can succession plant 2 times in that same bed space. So what is your profit per square foot of your farm over the course of the whole season? Cosmos are way cheaper to grow, way easier, way less manpower, and way less risk. So are dahlias profitable? Well, not as profitable as 2 easy seed grown annual crops are per bed. Okay, so let's look at marigolds. I grew one bed of marigolds. Now I started my marigolds, or I transplanted my marigolds in the middle of July because I wanted a fall crop. If you plant marigolds in the spring, you're going to have a lot of bug pressure. Like you're going to have your July Japanese beetle pressure because they attract Japanese beetles, right? So I don't grow marigolds except for fall plantings. So my marigolds were absolutely incredibly amazing. I sold almost all of them. They were humongous. Now they don't produce as many flowers per plant as a cosmos does, but they still produce a good amount. I also think I could have sold mine for a lot more because they were beefy, huge stems. Okay, so the marigold numbers. So I had one row of marigolds. I sold 450 stems of marigolds, which was $540. So multiply that by 2 and you get over $1,000, $1,100-$1,200 almost from one row of easy annuals again. So when you really look at your numbers, and maybe your numbers are different, like I said, maybe your dahlias produce a lot more or different things. But for me, like really looking at the numbers, dahlias are not massively profitable. They're just not. So, but maybe you're different. Maybe you're in a different zone or climate and your dahlias start blooming a month before mine, or you have a longer season and so the dahlia is more profitable because it's blooming for longer. But for me in West Michigan, that's how it is. So the bottom line is, don't feel like you have to grow dahlias. You don't have to grow dahlias. You don't have to love dahlias. Yes, florists love dahlias. I will say that. And there's not great alternatives. And they're a great local flower. They don't ship well. There's really good things about dahlias. But I'm just saying that doesn't mean that you need to sell them, or that if you're just selling them and you don't have any interest in selling the tubers, that they actually make a lot of sense for a small flower farm. So that's how I sell most of my flowers, is to florists. And if you really want to deep dive into that, I have a whole course about selling flowers to florists that I created. And it really is a roadmap bringing you from point A to point B every step along the way and teaching you exactly how to sell your flowers to florists. And it's been really helpful. And we have a great growing community over there. So there are so many other great fall blooming crops to choose from. So think of things like perennials. And woodies. I love to grow woodies. I have lots of videos about woodies. So I think of like fall blooming things like snowberries, ninebark, smokebush, Japanese anemones, which are a perennial, which florists love, and they bloom in the fall. And that's the only time they bloom. And they're so beautiful and just really dainty. I love them. And they do take a couple of years to establish, but they're so worth it. And then annuals, again, like early to mid-July, don't forget to succession plant. Plant a whole nother crop of marigolds, sunflowers, cosmos, zinnias. I mean, saponaria. The list could really go on and on. I hope that this video is helpful in understanding like the breakdown of dahlias versus other crops, and should you grow dahlias, and you certainly don't need to grow dahlias. And if you don't love growing dahlias, it's okay. You don't have to grow them. At least I don't think that you do. So if you enjoyed this video, please check out the video I did about growing snowberries and what they are and how they're such a great fall blooming woody. It's really great. I know you're going to love it. So until next time, I hope you're having a great holiday season and enjoying time with your family and friends and thinking about all these numbers to make your farm more profitable. I'll see you next time.